Desmond Lewis, also Charlie Davis. They take a little shame from out we face. But Sobers as a captain, he won plenty coaching before we cricket end up in a disgrace. Beatty here that he became a father, he catch out whole first in the cover. But when Sobers here, he too had a son. He made duck and went back in the pavilion. It was Gavaskar, the real master, just like a wall. We couldn't out Gavaskar at all, not at all. You know the West Indies couldn't out Gavaskar at all. You know the West Indies couldn't out Gavaskar at all. You know the West Indies couldn't out Gavaskar at all.
Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome. I'm your host, Ronaldo, the third umpire this afternoon. I should be joined by my other fellow umpires shortly. They may be on their way. I know one is primarily engaged. But as customary on this program, we start by giving thanks to God for another day. It's Friday, the 8th of the 8th, and we thank God for another day. You know, there are many who didn't make it till this afternoon, till 4 p.m. And we are here, you are here, and as customary as well, we do give thanks to the owners and operators of this great radio station, Street 91.9 FM. And they have given their platform to constructive dialogue and criticism, and no one should be afraid of constructive dialogue and criticism. Sometimes it's hard to digest. We all know that it's very hard to digest, especially when you are the subject of the criticism and the dialogue. But such is, especially those who are involved in public life, you know, that border between public and private life is very difficult. You know, whether you are an artist, you're a personnel, you're high profile public servant, you're a businessman, you know, it's difficult sometimes to have that balance. But again, we do thank the owners and operators of this radio station, Mr. George and company, and for allowing us to use this platform to try and have dialogues that are not meaning to be too stressful with you, the listeners, who will talk with us and chat with us on your way from work, or you may be home after a hard day's work, you may be retired after years of work, and you spare the time to sit down and chat with us. We do not take that for granted, and we do say thank you. And we want to encourage new callers. We're looking out for you. We have a usual group members in the pavilion. They call and we appreciate them, and we want to encourage. Yesterday we had some new callers who chimed in when we spoke about the police and the relationship with the police and the law and law enforcement. We did have some new callers, you know, and we welcome all new callers, especially young people. You know, we always say we're not into politics, and that don't bother us, and we're not into this and we're not to that. But we're all affected generally by the distribution and allocation of scarce resources and power in the society. We're all affected one way or the other. So one would think how that power is distributed and the effects of the distribution of that power and the events surrounding the allocation of that power are things that we should pay attention to. That can be done with, you know, just involving ourselves with the latest things that come around. So I want to say again, thanks to the pavilion, thanks to you, the callers, and keep calling, keep encouraging, share your views. We welcome all views on this program. This is Third Umpire, you know, and we are not particularly affiliated with anyone. We will deal with the issues as we see fit. We deal with the facts, We will deal with the facts as presented, and you can help make us aware of more facts. You know, we don't know all the facts, and we will present the facts as we have them, and we'll have discussions, and you will help us, because we believe that the power to discern and to decipher this troubled life and this troubled society lies with you and members of the pavilion and the public. You know, it doesn't always and only reside in the university and up there and among those members of society. The common man, the everyday man, the average man has the ability to discern his own issues and to figure out what may or may not be the solutions necessary for life. So, with that said, I want to thank you again for participating and encourage you to be part of the program. So we should have a visitor today. I'm waiting to be appraised whether he will be here or not. We know things change in the life of important people quite drastically and quite, frequently. So we hold no umbrage. We take no umbrage if it is we do not have our guest, but we were pinched that we should have that guest, and we still wait to see if that will manifest. So I'm taking a glance here at the match report, and the match report talks about hundreds crowd for U.S. comfort. I'm looking at the Newsday today, or the Express. We talk about the judge sends CPEP extension, contract extension to DPP. As we said, this, we dealt with this decisively yesterday, comprehensively. The judge dealt with this, and Justice Margaret Mohammed, pronounced on the matter. Then we see state to pay student over $260,000 after 2017 attack. Schools have a solemn legal duty to ensure the safety and welfare of students. The High Court ruled in a landmark decision that held the state liable for injuries suffered by a 15-year-old girl during a violent assault at a secondary school. Schools have a solemn legal duty to ensure the safety and welfare of students. The High Court ruled in a landmark decision that held the state liable for injuries suffered by a 15-year-old student during an assault at a secondary school. Justice Nadia Kangalu delivered the judgment, which concluded that Coover West Secondary School breached its statutory and common law duties of care when it failed to prevent or adequately respond to repeated bullying incidents that culminated in a brutal attack, leaving the victim permanently disabled. The teen was assaulted twice in one day on the school premises by two fellow students, one of whom had a documented history of bullying her. She sustained head trauma, post-concussion syndrome, chronic pain, and a 20% permanent partial disability. The court's ruling noted that her injuries were foreseeable and preventable given the school's prior knowledge of the aggressor's behavior. And I quote, "The court finds that the claimant was in custody of the state, both practically and statutorily, when the assault occurred," Kangalu said. To excuse the state would allow known student-on-student violence to persist without intervention. No problem. My fellow umpire is here, my senior. The claimant was in a wide-ranging oral ruling. Kangalu cited both domestic law, including Section 27 of the Education Act, and the international human rights principles, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UN Convention of the Rights of a Child, to reinforce the state's obligation to protect the child in its care. A school owes a duty of care to take such care for the health and safety of a child as is reasonable in all circumstances. At the end of the day, all that this court can do is encourage, through this judgment, systemic reform. There is, she stressed, a solemn duty on the part of the state to safeguard children's physical safety and their access to a secure educational environment. Umpire Matheson.
Good evening.
Good evening, Umpire Matheson.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm sorry to be late. I had some major matters of state to deal with this evening.
Yes.
And we also have a guest who will be calling in shortly. That is the minister that we spoke about yesterday, who he said that he wouldn't be able to be on the program in physical this evening because he have some other matters of state to deal with that came up today. But
yes,
he will be available for us to call in and talk with us. So let's finish dealing with the issue at hand and then we would call him. Good evening to our listeners also.
The facts of this case illustrate precisely why that duty has to be more than aspirational. A 15-year-old student under the state's care within her school was subject to violence that, in the court's opinion, was entirely foreseeable and preventable. The court's findings in this matter underscore that when institutional safeguards such as disciplinary systems, supervision, and follow-up are not meaningful and genuinely implemented, children suffer profound and long-lasting harm. In finding the state liable, Kangaloo noted glaring lapses in security supervision post-incident follow-up in the Couva West Secondary School. She noted that even the acting vice principal admitted under cross-examination that he was unaware the student had been struck in the head with a metal chair, despite receiving her report stating exactly that. According to the evidence in the case, the then teenager who requested anonymity said she and a friend were in the corridor of the school blocks during lunchtime when she was struck in the head with a metal chair and punched by another girl who had a history of bullying her. A second girl kicked her and punched her while she was on the ground, and the two aggressors attacked her again while she attempted to get up at the principal's office, to get help at the principal's office. We have heard many stories, many similar incidences in schools, and you will think that this is not a school, huh? This sounds like a ring, a wrestling ring, and incidents like these have become commonplace in our schools. Hence, I know the Prime Minister has indicated that the government is going to take some new initiatives towards curbing incidences like these. School violence is on the rise. School violence is on the rise, and you may take that into context with what we were talking about yesterday in terms of crime and police and etc. We do have a problem, and some people will not admit, again, as we say, some people will not want to admit that we do have a problem simply because, it maybe doesn't suit them.
That what you read there, to me, goes to the root of some of the problems that we have in understanding that especially public environment and public institution, the duty of care sometimes that they have that they don't realize that they have. Sometimes you see disclaimers and which are really voidable if someone should take you to court. It's just like the hospital. Somebody going to the hospital and the hospital having a duty of care for that patient in coming and doing the basic things. So I would have spoken about a situation some time ago where a lady, a good friend of mine, went to the hospital. She suffered a stroke, and what is supposed to be done when a patient comes in the hospital with something like a stroke or symptoms of a stroke is that they are supposed, within a reasonable time, supposed to do an MRI so that you will find out if it's a bleeding or if it's a clot. And therefore, both scenarios or both situations, both prognosis or diagnosis will be treated differently. And you cannot just think that is a stroke and treat for it is a clot and treat for a clot by blood thinners. You will do other things. So you would have this patient would have been kept for about 4 or 5 days without doing an MRI, and the reason given was that she was too heavy. The escort didn't want to move her from the bed to the MRI machine, and that was grounds for legal action, because the hospital has a duty of care at that time. And in the same way in schools and other public institutions where people or citizens could exercise their rights if they feel aggrieved by incidences like these, like what you just read, the state have a duty of care. And I saw the Prime Minister today, only a little while ago, was saying that she has commissioned an investigation into the death of the 6-year-old child at the hospital. And I don't know what the circumstances are there, but that in itself, that is similar to what we are saying here. State institutions, once you become a client in any way, they do have a duty of care to protect you or to do what they are supposed to do within the confines of the law and the policies and guidelines as to what they came there for. So that speaks to that significantly.
Yeah, and we sometimes hear, and the funny thing is that, I mean, well, you and I were, well, I more than you were, understand the constraints and the environment in which a school operates, yeah, and how many options are open to them. We have contradicting views on the right of a child and the right to education. But by certain types of behavior, you will want to question whether certain children want school. And if you come into school and you don't want school, then what you're going to do is terrorize other children. And wanting school, for me, lines up with a particular type of behavior.
Well, Ronaldo, listen. You see, every time you say these things, it reminds me of the discussions we had before with students wanting school and things. It's not really a question of students wanting school. It's whether the school has identified the type of either the school have identified through whatever kind of assessment the type of ways that the student, you will dispense the education needed for the student, for the child. And we don't have that kind of schools. We don't have those kind of schools in Trinidad and Tobago. So children come in the school system with all kind of, probably some with disabilities, learning disabilities, some without learning disabilities, but they learn differently from how the school is teaching you. And you find that they become disruptive if their brain are not titillated in a way in terms of how you dispense education that is just trained to understand it. So you find they will become disruptive, and that is an inherent challenge in the school system. So it's not necessarily that they don't want to learn, but how you're teaching them they can't learn that way.
Well, no, it's not actually about even don't wanting to learn, but I take what you say, but we must understand, and this is what I was telling you yesterday, that I veer on the side of the collective. Discipline in any institution is a must.
Yeah.
In the prison,
I agree with that.
Everywhere we go, discipline is a must.
I agree with
And
that.
we do understand that there are inherent kinks in the system, as you saying, that give rise to these things more and more.
Right.
And how the system is structured.
And it's not a perfect system.
And it is not a perfect system. At the end of the day, the majority can't be at the siege of the few.
Correct.
When you have a society in which the majority is at the siege of the few, we have a problem. And retaliation to deal with that minority most times are by varied means, which are not all too lawful. You have mob violence, you have gangs in retaliation, you have reprisal bullying, good, and actually you have students who endure the bullying for first and second form, and in third form they are the bully.
Yeah.
Because of what
Try calling Philip.
has gone on. But we do have a problem, and I always tell you that's where it starts, by admitting that we have a problem in our nation's schools. And that is one of the issues we need to face. Now, when it comes to school violence, I am not sure. I will want to know if we are satisfied with the ministry's methods in dealing with school violence. Because according to what you just said, there could be a scientific method.
Yes, there could be. But, you know, sometimes when you even look at, we have so many things that are like a domino effect as to, you know, the reasons why things are not happening the way maybe it should, and common sense will tell you it should happen, right? So, for instance, if you talk to a school principal, he will tell you that in most cases that the security is not there to protect the children, right? The teacher, he will tell you also, the teachers, if a teacher get in a fight with a child in school, right, more than likely that the teacher will be given wrong, correct? Right, because your job is not to do that. So then who really provides that kind of discipline and protection for the child in the school? That's the first thing.
Correct.
Right? All schools do not have, from what I was made aware of, all schools do not have school discipline
safety
officers.
officers. Yes, all schools don't carry safety officers.
All schools don't have even guidance. I remember when I was going to school, they had guidance counselors and that kind of thing. All schools do not have that. You have some social workers who visit from time to time. But you do have disruption in the school system, and that disruption sometimes goes to the core of the ability to carry out the core function of education and schooling, because sometimes you have some very disruptive, very disruptive. Some schools get more of them than others. So you have some very disruptive groups of students, and as a result, you have blockage in the education system to a large extent.
I couldn't read that too well, so you can just rewrite it for me while we speak. But you're right. But some parents will argue that, you know, some parents will argue that the schools have lapsed in providing safe and secure environments for students. And the same thing you have in the prison, you have in the school. You have students going home for 2 days, coming back, going home, coming back, and that type of behavior goes round and round. Because in this case, note that the judge did note that the aggressors had long histories.
Right, and that's why he said that the incident that took place was an incident that the school could have foreseen.
Correct.
And therefore it had a right to protect the student. But do we have in these institutions, or do we have institutions within these institutions to protect to do that, to administer that kind of protection that the judge talk about.
Correct. Do we have
The
it?
problem. And maybe you'll want to hear from like principals, because sometimes the system ascribe certain kind of responsibilities on office holders that are not supported by the system itself, and that in itself is dangerous, and it becomes risky for public, for like principals and that kind of thing, when we have these kind of, because just now you might hear that they may have to have some kind of liability insurance or something to protect themselves, because when you look at the way things are going right now with companies, look, we saw 2 judgments in recent days where the veils were lifted off of the corporation and directors were targeted, meaning directors were held responsible for their action.
Yeah.
And the same thing could happen in these situations where public holders could be held for, public office holders could be held responsible for their action and their liability in terms of not doing what they thought they should be doing.
And everyone assumes, most of all, one of the major assumptions you will have when you drop your child to school, even if they didn't learn a thing today, A for apple, B for bat, is that they were safe. That is of a higher expectation.
So, and that's the next thing. So some parents, and this is something I'm glad we're having this discussion, because some parents, they know that, and this is why in the system, maybe we should try the system should start holding parents responsible also. Just like they hold the schools responsible, we should start holding, the court should start holding them responsible also. Because some parents know that the children, they're actually going to, some of them telling the children, hey, if you hit, you cuff him down, or knock him out, or mash him up. They tell the children that. And when the children do that, or get damaged, then they try to hold the school responsible for it. But the thing is, when these things happen, the school has a responsibility, as we would see in this case like that, in cases like these. And some parents see schools as a big daycare. You let go your children in the morning, and you don't have them for the rest of the day, and that's the government responsibility. And that to me is unfortunate also, knowing what the children, you know.
Well, I did text the gentleman, so as soon as we get a reply, I would forward a call.
Yeah.
So, the issue of school violence we have seen is, this incident took place in 2017, and this student suffered partial, permanent disability, concussion, and these are very, very serious things in a school. Is a female on the hands of 2 other females, and that the behavior must be discouraged. Now, we don't have, and we don't believe in certain types of punishment, so that's not up for discussion. What does the school do? Do we have the scientific approach, according to you, from what you recommend, with the finding out what are the issues with the child, and or we just send them home for a couple of days to come back, and that happens a couple more times, or parents don't come. Some principals, you know, their hands are tied, you know, because make no mistakes, every parent has a friend, huh? And some friend in the ministry or some kind of a thing. It's a ball of twine. It's a real ball of twine sometimes. But we must take the stand. At least we must start from where, in our view, the ultimate responsibility lies. And the final authority is on the matter, especially a minor. You know, we're not dealing with 18-year-olds, etc. We know what the law says about them and what parents can and cannot do, etc., etc. But for minors,
Well,
with whom...
I missed the first part of what you were reading there. What was the issue with this story? I mean, yeah.
The issue was there was a fight in school, right? And the judge said schools have a solemn legal duty to ensure the safety and welfare of students. It was a High Court ruling by Justice Nadia Kangulu.
So it was a fight in school.
Yeah.
A student got damaged.
The teen was assaulted twice in one day on the school premises by two fellow students, one of whom had a documented history of bullying. The court finds that the claimant was in the custody of the state both practically and statutorily when the assault occurred. To excuse the state would allow known student-on-student violence to persist without intervention.
And you would tell me that all these things are happening, all these kind of judgments are coming out, and you've seen nothing still happening with the schools and its responsibility to protect students.
She sustained head trauma, post-concussion syndrome, chronic pain, and 20% permanent partial disability from being hit with a chair, a metal chair. A girl, by another girl, and then being beaten up by another girl in school. The court finds in the matter this underscores that when institutional safeguards such as disciplinary matters, disciplinary systems, supervision and follow-up are not meaningful and genuine implemented, children suffer. So it's one thing to implement these things, you know.
Yeah, so you see, when you look at all these judgments by the court, you remember the one last week with the Asja student?
Yes.
Where the student would have
cheated
to be cheated in the exam.
However,
and the judge restricted the
school
the punishment that could be given.
Yeah.
Saying that the judgment didn't actually say you couldn't punish the child.
No.
It said that maybe you should not have punished the child for something that he himself didn't do, because he didn't finish, was it a boy?
A girl, Asja.
Right, yes, sorry.
Girls.
It was a girl.
Yeah.
And she was disbarred from the other exams.
All exams.
Or given 0 for all other exams.
Yes.
And the judge would have indicated. So what the court is doing here is not telling you what to do, you know, but it's giving you parameters from which you can operate. Right? It's giving you parameters from which you can operate, and therefore the school system, if not from the Ministry of Education itself, policies and guidelines should be given to principals and school administrators to guide them so that we will not have these kind of situations where we have these kind of judgments.
Okay, so I just got the green light to call the gentleman. So we're talking about school violence first up.
This batsman,
yes,
they are about to call.
Yes,
he was a proponent for good governance. You know, a lot of things that we see in the system now that we want answers to. More so, he's a person. He on the batting team. The team batting. We said yesterday that the team putting the batting side has put in some runs. We want to hear what is his position on that and other things.
Okay, but I'm going to bowl him the ball with what we're dealing with now, because the CBEP matter is also in the papers today, right?
Okay.
And let's hear what he has to say.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Minister, Honorable Minister, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ronaldo Rollocks here with Stephen Matheson, my next umpire. You're live on the third umpire on Street 91.9 FM.
Good afternoon.
We know you are very familiar with the station. A particular lady said to check your phone. She sent you a message sometime.
All right, I'll check that. But let me say good afternoon to you all. Good afternoon to the crew, the team. Good afternoon to everybody listening. Thank you for having me.
And Mr. Alexander, we were just talking about we're using the match report as in the Newsday. There are more some pressing issues we'll get into, but we want to start with the matter of school violence and the latest ruling by the court that the school or the ministry has been found negligent in providing a safe learning environment for children, or for this student who suffered post-concussion and permanent partial damage, etc., etc. And it was a school incident from 2017, and the court found that the disciplinary procedures employed by the school were wanting and actually not genuine. I know the Prime Minister has delineated new plans and special plans to deal with schools and school violence. You could weigh in on this if you have any thoughts on the matter.
It's not like I have any additional thoughts on the matter outside of the Prime Minister's remarks.
Yes.
At the end of the day, the Honorable Minister of Education is on top of all of the redirection that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet has set for the Ministry of Education in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think we will learn a lot more about it when the 100 Days report comes out.
Yes.
But I want to say the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, was at one time a Minister of Education. In fact, she was the Minister of Education that made universal school places post-common entrance /SEA available to all children in the country. For the first time, with her as Minister of Education, for the first time in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, no child could fail. There was a place for everybody. That took a lot of work, and I don't know if you could remember how much work that was to get all those schools built and get all those places ready. But I'm saying that to you to make a point, that this is a woman that has children at her heart, and she wants the best for all of the nation's children. And I think that all of the go-forwards from here, regardless of what, and I'm not ignoring any judgments or anything that the courts did, that the courts arrived at during the previous administration, but our guidance is above and beyond that. Our guidance is what is in the absolute best interest for the nation's children. How do we get first-world education for them in a safe environment? And you're going to see new things being introduced in the very soon time. And I'm going to have to leave it at that because, you know, she says, stay in your lane and play in your lane. So I will help as much as I could.
But before you leave us on that, you know, you and I would have sat on a couple of occasions and we talk about the education system and the failings of the education system. What are have you had any input or I don't know what would have happened beyond the doors of the public, but in terms of the Prime Minister's view on the education system, are we going to see any major overhaul on the way education is dispensed in Trinidad and Tobago, the education system in particular? Some of the things we would have spoken about in the past, about assessment, children assessment before coming to school and getting them the right classes or the right kind of learning systems and that kind of thing. Is it that we would see anything like that in the future for this administration, at least in the next 5 years?
I want to tell you, Minister Dowlat is very responsive. He and I have had very lengthy conversations. I actually met him for the first time at a UNC Town Hall meeting on education, and I had gone up on the mic to talk about abolishing homework because it is my personal view that people have 24 hours in a day, and if you break it up into 3 8-hour shifts, 8 hours for work or school, 8 hours for sleeping, that leaves you 8 hours for family time and chores and development. And I think that it is unfair that outside of the 8 hours of school, that children also come home and have homework eaten into their development time. And he and I had a lengthy conversation on that. We had a lengthy conversation on the school book mafia and what happens with books that are minor edits and it changes and it's a new edition, so parents can't pass it down one to the next child, or you can't sell it or trade it in for new books. And it led to him putting a stop to that this year, and he said, keep the books that we have, and that's what we're going to work with. We spoke about the weight of the books in the school bag, and he told me he was ahead of me on that one, that he was already in deep conversation and negotiation from a position of buying rights, copyrights and stuff, and creating intranets and environments where a lot of the school book, a lot of the textbook information could be in the cloud. Because what's the point of saying we're going to give all the children laptops and then they're still working with this 500 pounds of books?
But that still seem have not been passed down to all the schools, because I was looking at TV6 a couple nights ago where they were interviewing parents who were already buying books for students, and they spoke to a couple parents.
That change didn't happen now, but I'm saying he's on top of it, and they will be rolling out changes. So you might find that certain textbooks and certain pursuits would no longer require a physical textbook, and that will be coming. But remember, we're still only here, it's only 100 days. So there's a lot to get a handle on. I know that he was focused on getting all the schools functional. A lot of the schools were in terrible condition, dilapidated, and we in the August holiday break, and they've been using the time to get those schools functional. But a lot of the things that you and I spoke about, continuous assessment, abolishing the SEA, these things are on the table. So there is conversation. And that is a healthy position compared to the last administration that wasn't interested in any conversation at all. So I think that we're in a good place. And I think that you and I could have another one of these conversations 3 months or 6 months from now and assess where we are along the road.
Well, certainly. I mean, that is something we will be doing, but we will also remember this show. This show is a cricket show, you know. You are on the batting side. So we would be expecting that a lot of the things that you and I would have spoken about in the past, would you being one of the batsmen now, would have the opportunity to implement them, or to at least go in the direction of implementing some of those.
We've been in the lead up to the election. We had multiples of conversations. As you know, you are aware more than most people of the depth of the work that we did with the policies of the Progressive Empowerment Party, and we gave them all to the coalition. We made them all available to the coalition, and I know it instructed some policies for the election, and it's part of the national document now. It instructs government now, and I know that as we go along, more will be included. And I know you want to bowl some fruit or something, but I'm going to ask you, hold your firepower and give us to the
Noel, you, Mr. Minister, you have been batting, you know, and we like how you're batting. You're not batting, but you're playing some good ball. So a couple nights ago, we were talking about crime on the show, and we had cause to talk about the reduction, the comparative advantage. The comparison you would have given of the last 3 years and the crime statistics, and of course this year, for some reason, was the lowest. By about 100 and about 34 murders, somewhere in that vicinity. But my analysis of that was that it may not necessarily have been by anything you would have done, or your batting team would have done, and maybe it might have been by either some luck, or maybe something the feeling side would have done and before they leave to stem the tide. I don't know, but and that is what some people will say. So I'm just talking about what maybe probably to throw some just to try a wrench in your argument that if you were to take credit for that, maybe you should take credit for all the other things that are not happening, that because the government doesn't have the money to do it. Maybe you should take credit for all the other things that are not happening. But what say you with respect to that?
Well, let's go in depth. We actually went down into the month-by-month murder rate. And I want to see if I could get that screen here that I could pull up. I want to give you an actual month-by-month breakdown for your listeners. And they will see that, and what I want to say to you is, remember, if there was an uptick in crime, it's ours to eat. And if it's a downward trend, it's ours to boast about. I want to tell you this, right? The election was at the end of April. You agree with that?
Yes, 28.
So we really speaking now for May, June, July. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so these were the numbers in the murder rate, month by month. January 33, February 28, March 37, April 32, May 29, June 30, July 36. Okay? July was the second highest month for murders in this year, this 6-month period so far. But generally, it's been a downward trend overall. But we have to take credit for maintaining and lowering the trend because it is ours, the first 6 months. It is all we there now. So statistically, government is down. When you're looking at numbers coming out of government, for you to ask for breakdowns, that's political. You're looking for the political version of government. But government, to the provision of goods and service to the people, is government, regardless of who they are. We want to know what the government did. And I'm saying that in the full context of saying 2 states of emergency bounce each other up here. Because the PNM went out of office on a state of emergency. And in not long after we came into office, a state of emergency had to be declared.
Okay.
And a state of emergency has an impact. I just want to say this. A state of emergency has an impact on crime. Now, there are people in Trinidad who want to have their cake after eating it. They want the cake to still be there. You can't have it so. You either face the reality that a state of emergency gives law enforcement advantages that the criminal enterprise enjoys outside of a state of emergency, and that is something that we as an intelligent, mature
Mr. Minister, we're going to pay some bills. We will have to call you back probably in the next 10 minutes, but this is something we cannot avoid. We have to pay some bills.
I understand. Call me back.
call him back. Back?
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Minister. You're back. Sorry about that. We just had to pay some bills.
You paid bills for the year? It's gone for a while. Almost left. No, just kidding. Thanks for having me back. Thanks to all who rejoined. Where were we? We were doing the month-by-month breakdown.
Yes, you were telling us about the crime statistics.
Well, what I'm saying is, good or bad, what Mr. Matheson suggested earlier is correct. Good or bad, we're responsible for the country as it is right now. And while we can point out failings of the other administration, it is not in any way giving us any false comfort that we can rest on our laurels. We made some large promises to get into office, and the Honorable Prime Minister reminds us daily, especially those of us with positions of authority, that we have a responsibility to keep those promises. And the 100 days report will show you just how far we came with that attempt at keeping our promises so early in the game.
You know, Mr. Minister, there's a lot of things we want to pack in this next hour, because we really also want to hear the listeners, what they have to say. What do you say to all those persons who are today talking about the deteriorating state of roads still? After, now I may know the answers to some of them with respect to budget and that kind of thing, and budgetary allocation and finance, but what do you say to them?
Well, beyond that, there's not much you can say. I mean, the state of the national infrastructure is abhorrent. I don't know what the last Minister of Works was doing, what Pure was doing, what the regional corporations were doing. I don't know. We were on the roads. We still, I use the roads every day like you. But what I could tell you, and I remember when Bill Bratton was here during the last UNC administration, and he told us, he said, even though you're getting crime down, it will take months and years for people to understand and feel it. So accustomed are they to the reality that they know. I work on the corner of South Key and George Street, HDC building there. And there was a big hole. Well, it wasn't so big. It was about the size of your tire, but it was deep. And we knew that hole was there for every day that we went to work for the first week. And then the second week, when I was driving up the road, and I noticed that hole was gone, that it was properly fixed and paved. And I didn't get a chance to even make a report on it to say I contacted the minister myself. They're doing work. You're seeing work being done. But it's such a massive volume of work. And yes, I do get, like Paro, they have some roads that can't be called road. They have more hole than road. I mean, there's nothing left. Maruga, what the Honorable Michelle Benjamin contending with down there. I mean, Maruga is like the land that time forgot. I went down Maruga before the elections, and a road was literally split in two. One side of it was 6 feet below the other side. It was like two different pieces of road and out of collapse. And I'm saying that I don't know what the last administration was doing, but the workload for the Ministry of Works, for Pure, for the corporations, for Ministry of Local Government, is tremendous, it's bordering on ridiculous. And thank God that the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa had the resources in the persons of Jenny John and Khadija Amin, put in those two ministries, so that we're going to get fast action and strong results.
Okay. So is it that the fact that you know that the country, probably the government is waiting on the resources via a budget to be able to do certain things, while you personally seem to be in a state of campaigning still, because that is one of the things we were told to ask you. Why do you sound like you are campaigning all the time still, even after your government has won the elections for more than 2 months now?
I love that question. And I want everybody who asks you this, and I want you yourself to check, verify what I'm about to tell you. A large percentage of BMW's advertising budget per year is aimed at existing BMW owners. To keep them... No, don't laugh at that. I'm telling you. When you're finished, it's to keep them informed and clued in to what is happening and all of the developments, to keep them as loyal BMW customers. And the same thing applies with the government. The last government didn't care whether you like what they're saying or not. You take it or you leave it. You had a minister literally stoops in a man's face on camera. He became a meme. I shudder to think, if a minister under Kamala Prasad put God out his or her thoughts and stoops at a citizen, you'd be fired before the stoops dry up on your lips. But that was what we had grown accustomed to. We were in an abusive relationship. They were doing us what they wanted, and people had gotten accustomed to that. But this is a different government, and I don't mince words. I am sure that we dodged a massive bullet, maybe a nuclear bomb, on April 28th. If the PNM had come back into office, they would have destroyed this country. They were destroying the economy so that certain people could have buy up everything in the country. And I make no bones about that. But I want to tell you, we've won already. A lot of the things had gone. WASA rates, electricity rates, revenue authority, the merit points, property tax, the amount of big frightening things, WHO, WEF, all of those things that we used to panic about gone. There's a big gaping hole and a lot of silence where that noise, that conspiratorial noise used to be. All of that's been dealt with, and so much more is being dealt with. There are issues that come up. You notice that the issue of tariffs didn't prompt a press conference to come and tell you that the country is collapsing and tighten your belt and don't eat no macaroni this month. You notice that didn't happen. You know what happened? You heard a prime minister say, there are 3 fronts we are attacking this on, and we are going to get past it, we are going to solve it, and we're going to make sure that we get through it unscathed. That's leadership. How to make sure that those who missed hearing that, hear it every way possible. So some people might say it's campaigning. Others might see it as simple celebrating and joy, that we are happy that we have a country that's been properly run for the first time in a long time.
That being said, what do you say to the CPEP workers, who, not the contractors, the workers, the people who were cutting the grass and maintaining the communities? What do you say to them at this time in relation to the proposed restructuring that is now being undertaken?
Well, I did a 12-minute voice note I passed through this morning on that. Because it's not easy to tell people be patient, especially people who are holding the worst end of the stick. And those people who were used by the previous administration as labor fodder to pad contracts so that their friends, family, and finances could get away with millions and tens of millions of dollars in contracts. Unfortunately, they don't work for CPEP. They work for John Smith and Long Tong Limited. They work for 1% Holdings Limited. And we had to fire them. In fact, one of the companies had the audacity to bring the government through CPEP to the courts And the courts not only stayed the proceedings yesterday, but referred it to the Director of Public Prosecutions for the obvious fraud that a line minister is alleged to have undertaken. Someone in authority in this country, days before the election, lied to the board of directors of CPEP, misled them into believing that there was cabinet authority to renew all contracts. That was a criminal act because it didn't exist. And that is what the Director of Public Prosecutions is pondering today. Now, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Mr. Minister,
you have to clean this up. And I'm just saying that the contractors had to have been removed and destroyed. Yeah, but we need CPEP or some version of it to maintain and to do what CPEP workers were doing, the Prime Minister pointed out. We have about four or five organizations in this country that are all funded to cut grass. So at some point, we have to redevelop how we go about vegetation control. And I know we're working on that too. It's a process. And I just need to keep reminding people. It's 100 days we're there.
Mr. Minister, we saw in we read in the judgment that the court, just like in the EB ruling, reminded board members of their fiduciary responsibility to the enterprise for which they represent. Going forward, is this going to be, well, I know you can't speak for the head, but do you see that this being the general tone of this government, where they're going to make sure, to the best of their ability, that boards and members of boards and heads of state boards understand their responsibilities and knowing that the government is going to hold them too accountable?
Normally, by now, all boards would have been appointed. There would have been a list of friends, family, and financiers. Put we here, put we there. And in our situation, that's not the case, because due diligence and deliberation is instructing the assembly of these boards. And people are being put in positions, chairman, CEO, people who are very clear in their minds of that responsibility, that they're not insulated or shielded from it, that the government is not going to run to your rescue. I've told my people that. We get workers, we get assistants, and I tell them, I say, listen, you stray from the rules. Don't call my phone if you get yourself in trouble, because the Prime Minister has been very clear.
Yeah.
Feet on the ground, and do not, for any reason, do anything to undermine the government and the role it wants to play in the redevelopment of integrity in public life in this country. And so to answer your question, any board member, in light of all of these situations that they've seen for themselves, knowing the risk of not taking their roles and responsibilities seriously, well, they have only themselves to blame. Should it go in any direction other than straightforward, proper, responsible management?
And Mr. Minister, you know, we have seen in previous administration, well, I must commend the present AG in his stealth approach in unraveling some things that seem to be a ball of twine. And he has promised to get to the end of the thread. Do you see in this administration the impetus and the will to unravel some of these issues, some of these conundrums that we've been faced, and getting to the bottom of the issue? The bowling side made a lot of promises of who going to make jail, who going to get locked up, who this, that, the other, and we lived with that. This batting side, do you see the impetus to make sure that whatever they say, they mean what they say, especially when it comes to malfeasance and negligence, even among their own? You know, I know that's a difficult pill to swallow, but...
No, it's not, because when you say what you say, I want you to remember that Kamla Prasad Bisesa is the Prime Minister who has the record for firing more members than anybody else if they cross the line. And that's during the People's Partnership Government. And I want to go back to something that Mr. Matterson asked earlier about the constant campaigning. Communicating is what we're doing, and keeping the people informed, because the last time we didn't. and the PNM was allowed to run away with the narrative and make mischief. They're not being allowed to make mischief now.
Right.
The point where they're focusing on people like me and Anil and others who keeping the people informed outside of the controlled media. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not going any further than that.
So you all are the, in other words, you all are the de facto government communication.
No, not necessarily so. Every minister has their own communications, and the Prime Minister herself controls the government communications. But we are people with voices and following that you cannot not use, you cannot ignore. I remember when the PNM was playing this stupid game with the Venezuelans and Trinidad and was trying to give the Prime Minister stress. And I remember that I did a video one night outlining the information as to exactly what was taking place between Venezuela and Trinidad, and letting Trinidadians know, for all the stupid talk that you're hearing from the PNM, that the United States of America is sitting there watching and waiting and hoping that the Venezuelans, through Caramello or Maduro or one of them, put God out their thoughts, because they want boots on the ground. They want the provocation. The Monroe Doctrine is a real thing. It exists, and we benefit from it. So when the Honorable Prime Minister told them, if you stray into our water with nefarious intention, we'll blow you out the water. It's not our guns, not our bombs. We have a big brother, and we can rely on that. And they've said so. And we had to put that information out in the public space. And the next morning, that whole story that was galloping every day, every night, died that night in one video. And that is the power of our ability to communicate and keep the people informed. And you cannot not use that.
Mr. Minister, you began by saying, when you began on the program, about, you know, batting in your crease, staying within your remit. Now, the ministry in which of which you're part of the leadership, the minister in that ministry, can you delineate first, or is it clear exactly what your remit is or is not as yet? Is that clear?
It is, but it's
yeah, because I want a house.
You living in the hospital? I want to tell you that it is Honorable Dr. David Lee is the line minister.
Right.
Anna Roberts and myself, Honorable Anna Roberts and myself are both ministers in the Ministry of Housing. Now, today, I want to give you some numbers. In 10 years, the People's National Movement built 4,700 houses. In the 5 years before, under Rudal Modilal and Jerry John, the People's Partnership built 5,600 houses. In this 5-year period here, we are going to build 20,000 houses. So we are on the ground working. So that means we are going to do the equivalent of 50 PNMEs in houses. And we're ready to roll. We have all our ducks in a row. We have all of our negotiations in train. We are working with local, regional, international suppliers. We have new technologies available. We had a lengthy conversation with the Indian High Commissioner over technology exchange. They built 22 million houses in 7 years. And they and others are assisting us in our lofty goals. Prime Minister said, you could build more than 20,000 houses, you can't build less. So we clear.
Okay, that's actually good news, because every year, this has been a issue for years now, about the construction of houses and the allocation of houses, and we know the ministry of which you are part is quite vast, and there are different issues. There are issues of engineering issues, there are building, there's maintenance issues, etc., etc.
Weather.
Yes, weather as well. So that's really good news for the public. Do you see the ministry becoming more technologically driven, especially in the application process and the update process? As in, when I apply for a house, where is my application? Where am I in the queue? Am I, do you see more of that being made?
I had to say, well, they're eavesdropping. I had to find out who giving all your access to our information. Because it's not in public space yet. But
We,
like you all have
you
to
know,
go.
we
You
have
all
been
post.
say, you know, you and I have been talking this kind of thing for years now.
I know that. I know that. I just joking for your audience, but I want
Yes.
to tell you that all of your questions spot on. I mean, we are going to streamline the process of how you get into the HEC. Your application must come through all the steps, as if you're buying a normal house in the private sector. If you're going to buy a private house in the private sector, there are steps that you have to take that you cannot avoid. So those steps have to be taken till you get to the point where I stand here pre-qualified to buy a house for $1 million. That my family's complete our financial every year, every month, our earning capacity doesn't exceed a certain number, so we qualify there and we pre-qualify for a certain amount of value in housing. So it instructs us as knowing that the market is 16,000, $500,000 houses, 4,000. You understand what I'm saying? We're going to
Yes.
get those numbers. We're also working, you would have noticed, the Honorable Dr. David Lee took the entire Ministry of Housing to meet with the entire Ministry of Social Development led by the Honorable Vandana Mohit, and Dr. Natalie Chaitan was there, and all our permanent secretaries were there, and all our technical people were there, and we went to speak from the point of view, because there are going to be people who cannot qualify for a house, who we still have a responsibility to provide housing for, and they are the disabled in society and others. And we are already putting things in place to keep all of those publics covered also. And I'm adding that to the conversation so that people listening have no reason to feel that they might be left out. Because what we want, what the Prime Minister has outlined as the vision for this term in office, is everybody who wants a job has a job, and everybody who have a job and want a house will get a house, and everybody who can't afford to get themselves in out of the rain, we will shelter you, and we go forward from there. That's specifically speaking where home ownership is concerned.
So, Mr. Minister, now that you're part of the batting team, and we want to give credence to your hard work, because I too have been, and like many others, following your progress. And plenty times we swear you ain't coming back to bat again. You see, you're done, you're going on with your bat, you're done with the cricket match. And then you come back again. What drives you to continue to give? And you went up in a seat where, despite the odds and everybody saying there's a stronghold, he had to be joking. It didn't deter you. You know, you could have maybe gone or asked for what they call a safe seat, but you went to the ground. You went to the, almost mission impossible. Let's say that, and it didn't faze you. What drives you to come back and play every match, every game, despite the results, or despite what happened in the past?
I like the analogy of the team. I like the analogy of the game. I am a team player. Stephen Matheson could tell you that. We've known each other for a while now. He's seen a lot of stuff, and I want to tell you that when I made the decision that I was going to make sure, I said on March 2nd, 2024, I will make sure Kamala Prasad-Bisasa is the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. When I said that on March 2nd, 2024, she was embattled. The PNM was romping home to victory. She had dissidents inside her party detonating by the day. She had one man rambling, quitting every three days. She had Gary Griffith outside fighting her, former members beating her up. And I said I would use my strong voice and I will make sure she's the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And one by one, others saw her vision, and others saw the reality of where we would go if the PNM was to get back in office and reform this coalition of interest. But make no mistake, she is the power, she is the force behind it. And when she sat with me, you're right, I could have demanded a safe seat. I could have made sure and look after myself. But I know the power of my ability. I've had a life of training, because people who love me or hate me, they all say one thing when they see me is, boy, you work real hard for this. And I don't ever hear any other politician being told that you work so hard to get here. And that people know, you know, the volume of work that we put out, that I put out to get here. And I knew my value. And she asked me, she said, you know, we have certain things that need to get done. And I said to her, say, ma'am, you are my leader now. I come to bend the knee. I come to give you my sword. I come to work in your service. You are leading. You tell me where you want me to go. That's still the case.
Mr. Minister.
And that will remain the case.
Mr. Minister.
Remain the case.
Mr. Minister.
But you ask me what drives me. I just want to say one more thing, if I could, please. And that is, I have children. And like everybody else, I mean, this week we buried a Senate colleague. You never know how long you have at the bat. And to use your analogy, and I want to tell you something, I'm going to do everything in my power. If I can't change the world, I'm going to change this country to make sure that my children grow up in a better place.
Mr. Minister, I know the public is listening and they want to chime in also. But I want to ask you one last question before you go. Who is Harry back?
I promised that. I promised that when I got into government, that I would release that information. I want to tell you something. Certain things are taking place right now in the public space that will unveil Harry back in all his glory for everybody to see. A lot of people already sussed it out and figured it out when they look at the reality of what the country became. But yeah, plenty of people, he's a very famous guy now, you know, plenty of people waiting for him to be unveiled.
Okay, Mr. Minister, we'll take some calls.
Thank you. Thank you for talking to us.
Yeah.
So, listeners, you would have heard a batsman who is on the batting team. He was sitting in the audience with us. And, you know, sometimes you have a match and you have commentary and you would have one of the batsmen will sit with us from time to time to give us his analysis of the game. We had Minister Philip Alexander, who was just on in the Colosseum with us, and he was giving his analysis of the game also. Soon we will have a member from the field side who will do the same. But what are your comments on the discussion we just had? We'd like to hear it.
Good afternoon, caller. Okay, let's take another call. Good afternoon, caller.
Something is it?
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, ma'am.
Very interested topic. I thought Mr. Alexander was going to remain. I wanted to compliment him on his what it is that people ask you to ask him. What do people ask you, Mr. Matheson, to ask Mr. Alexander? I can't remember.
No, they wanted to know who is Harry back. You know?
No, not that. When you started, if he's still campaigning, right?
Right, yes.
And I wanted to tell him congratulations on campaigning and continue to campaign, because people don't realize election is not to vote and sit back and wait till another election. Campaigning should never stop. Campaigning is what you do, what you say you're going to do. It's not are we going to do, and everybody sit down waiting to see if they're doing it. That they have to campaign for the 5 years. So when the 5 years finish, they can say, oh, that man did well, this man did well, because that is what you have to reference. That's what you have to look at, their performance for the next 5 years. So he himself can't sit down as he is telling you, we're doing this and we're doing that. It's not we doing. We should be seeing, and a lot of people, I was going to tell Mr. Alexander, when you ask him questions, why are he answering the question? Because we have Anansi. When you all want to know answers, just look to Anansi. You all don't know Anansi. You should be educating the people about Anansi, because some people don't read and don't know what's going on. Okay? Like you ask them all kind of thing. And the answer is in the Anansi, and they spoke about that in the press conference yesterday. So you were asking them certain questions, and I'm saying, why Matheson and asking that question? It is already said, the things came out, the program is there. So he was, and I was going to tell Mr. Alexander, all he has to say when people ask him questions is, we have Anansi. And you all know what Anansi is, right?
Yes, we're quite aware.
Right, Mr. Matheson?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, caller.
Mr. Matheson?
Yes.
Mr. Matheson asking you, you see how long all they have, you see all this unfair? You see how long you had, because I'm not a minister.
No, we have a lot of
I asking you all if you know what is Anansi.
We know what is Anansi.
Just say no, or yes.
Yeah,
he said yes, he said yes.
I know what is Anansi.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
We'll educate the people on Anansi so we will have all these questions going over and over and over again. Thank you very much. Thanks very much for that.
Have a good evening.
Yes, call us on 342-0081, 466-5391. The minister was very trite. I mean, I know he was being cautious, as he should be. These things have a way, these conversations have a way of people editing it and taking pieces and, might be mischievous depending on who the listener is. But he was very forthright. I didn't think he was avoiding anything. We didn't get him in person to bowl him some pace bowling. So he was on the phone. So
he was supposed to be sitting with us.
Yes, so he still owes us. Does he still owe us a visit?
Of course he owes us a visit.
Yes, so
but he did indicate that he had some matters of state to deal with this evening.
Yes.
And he will come on another day.
He will come on another day.
Yeah.
So we hoping that he will join us in person.
Yes.
And as you promised, we will have someone else from the other team who will join us in the near future.
Yeah.
But
I was told that sometime a member of, well, as a matter of fact, a member of the feeling side has already indicated their willingness or their interest
to come and have a chat
and having a chat to give their side of the analysis in terms of the feeling side and how they would have batted also.
Yeah.
And that is good. Sometimes, we need to hear both sides of the story.
So you can call us, engage us. You may want to discuss any comments on the minister's views or the things he said, or you may just tell us what you think about what we were talking about originally, which is the school violence and the responsibility of the state to provide a safe learning environment for the school children, and what has become endemic now in not every school, in many schools. And we have a different rationale for why these things are happening, and what are these schools offering, to certain students. Are we getting it wrong? Is the menu wrong?
Well, one of the things I've experienced, I mean, school and placement and everything, parenting and parents in schools and parent interaction in schools, there's a certain kind of psychology, let me tell you. So, when your child, you would be grooming your child to pass exams, to do the SEA exam, and some parents really go out. Some parents, for a period, they don't socialize, they don't do nothing. They're just with the child all the time, just
SEA.
Yeah, SEA. Just
lessons.
putting down that work, lessons, all that work.
All on the morning, evening.
But when your child pass for the fourth choice and not the first choice. You know, everybody like to put a child the first choice. St. Mary's, St. Benedict's, you know, all these schools, St. Joseph Convent and all these schools. When your child did not pass for that school and pass for the fourth choice, something like they lose something, boy. They stop showing that kind of interest. I don't know, I'm just saying, to a large extent, they stop showing that kind of interest. But most of the ones that happens to would have been the ones that didn't show that kind of interest in the first place.
Yeah.
But they lose that kind of interest. So sometimes you can identify the parents or the interest parents show in the student by the amount of parents you see at, say, PTA meetings. Because as I always say, you know, I had experience with the government schools and PTAs, and I had experience with parent meetings at the schools we call prestige schools.
Yes.
And there was a time I will say that when a meeting like that is called in a prestige school, at least one of the schools that one of my sons attended, it was lunchtime, it was midday, and you would see, sometimes I would think, like, I wonder if it's three parents and a child. The amount of parents you would see.
Godfather too.
Yeah, you would see on Pembroke Street and Frederick Street and thing on that day. It's amazing. But in the school right a few blocks down the road, right? The government school a few blocks down the road, you have PTA meeting. They know the day the PTA meeting is in the evening after work. And you would see 10 parents in a school with almost 1,000 students. And that to me says something. That to me says something about the kind of interest parents show in the children, especially when they are not in the schools that they would have considered. I don't know. I mean, I saw Harry back and all in PTA meetings on Pembroke Street. So
do you consider, according to what you have said before, in terms in reference to the issue of school violence, parents central to the issue?
They are, of course they are. They are central. I mean, some would say you can make the child, but you can't make the mind and that kind of thing. But sometimes you have to understand how you socialize your children, the kind of values you portray at home.
So
you
think that really where the buck should stop with the parent?
Yeah,
because sometimes we punish the children.
At the parent. I mean, they have the ultimate responsibility. But teachers too, eh?
Yeah.
Because you know about the Pygmalion effect.
Go ahead.
Right? Teachers' expectations of children.
Yeah.
So in a significant way, teachers play a great role in the socialization of children. They sometimes have more exposure to children than parents. Right? Because they are before the children for about 6 hours. Sometimes you just have about 3, 4, 5 hours. Right? About 6 hours traveling in a society like Trinidad and Tobago on the road, and the rest just for a few hours at home when the parents come home or whatever, and the night child going to sleep, and then next thing is school again in the morning. But teachers have a large amount of exposure to the children for 6 hours.
Right. But let me get it, because we're going to be asking the pavilion. We can't confiscate the difference between roles and responsibilities.
Correct.
So we can't confuse it, right? We do acknowledge that teachers play a role. School plays a bigger role. Administrators, the society, members of the public. I want to know from the pavilion, where does the responsibility lie? Who has the final responsibility? Let me take this call. Good afternoon, caller.
Hi, good afternoon, and how are you?
I'm okay.
Great.
Okay, today is Friday, and I want to say beautiful afternoon to Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
And my point this afternoon is this morning, I sent a message for the Honorable Minister of Works that there was a hole in the highway before Marcy Trading. And I want to compliment that minister because when I passed this afternoon at 3:30, I see the hole was all fixed and vehicles was going because that hole was causing a lot of accidents in the road because you have to shift when you reach there and then the car behind you. I saw with my own eyes when one car hit the other and the other hit the other.
Wow.
We had about 3 cars, you know.
Yes.
And I want to compliment the Minister of Works, the Honorable Miss Jolene John. And only a message went this morning, and by this afternoon, you know, we could see progress.
Yes.
So I want to say that my government is working.
Yes.
And I wish them all the best. And I know we have a bright future to come by the grace of God.
Yeah, and I think that particular batsman or batswoman, she is doing some really great work. This morning I had the opportunity to be in her presence, and one of the things she said is that she do not ever not answer her phone. She said in that meeting that if I told my daughter that when I die, bury me with my phone, so because we don't know who might need to call me.
Yes, that's true. And I want to say that, and I want to say it in a nice way, that if everybody, all the minister could be like her, would be very nice. Because sometimes in our country, when you work for a minister after election, they have nothing to tell you. But I must say that she's working. And I want to compliment Miss Jolene John. And not only that, what I realized with her, she don't like to be on the front line, but she does her work very quietly.
Yes, yes.
Very, very quietly. This is what we need, you know. And to you, TC, and what's your name?
No, this is Stephen and Stephen Matheson and Ronaldo Rollocks.
Right. I want to say that you all doing a good job, and what I really like is that you all hear what people have to say. You give them a hearing.
Yes.
And this is what we want, you know. And I want to say that our country, I must say that our Prime Minister changed our country from hate to love. And I could see it in people, because when you go out there, you see the kindness in people. You know, you've seen it. There's a change. People have changed in this country a lot. And what I want to see is a lot of smiling. It takes nothing to smile. Just smile with each other. And this is what we're looking for. You know, in the world today, sometimes you're not in a good mood because every day you mightn't be in the same mood. But when you see somebody smiling, it makes you feel good, because while even coming in the car this afternoon, a little girl was watching me, and I given her bye-bye, and she'd bend her head, and you see the shyness. So that makes you feel, you know, once you make people feel good, the power of love is something that we cannot buy.
Correct.
And thank you for giving me this opportunity this afternoon.
Correct.
No problem, caller. Thanks for calling.
That goes into what we were saying yesterday about the police. If you show that kind of appreciation and show that kind of respect for people, it's the same thing, people return it. And that's what she's saying, you know,
we have another caller. Yeah. Good afternoon, caller.
Good evening, the Empires, and how you guys doing today?
Good,
yes, good.
You know where I get from that? You said the principal didn't have an idea. You know the incident that took place in 2017 where you were reading? How the principal didn't have an idea that these children were being bullied?
Well,
that's kind of shocking to me.
Yeah, and that's why the judge said that more now you're culpable, because you're supposed to have an idea. After numerous reports, you know, there were reports in the school, so that person testified under cross-examination, you know, that they weren't aware, but that speaks volumes. So who do you hold finally responsible for who do you say, in your view? Is it a parental, a home issue, or is it a school issue, or both? Who do you hold responsible? Who you think we should hold finally responsible for school violence with children?
Well, I hold everyone responsible. Parents, teachers, and the environment where you live. And let me put it in this way. As a parent, you must know the pattern your child be at home if it changes. His mood, her mood, how she do things. So you know something is wrong with her. That's something you have to observe. That's a parental instinct. It's not something you have to learn. That you're born with that.
Because let me ask you this. You, knowing the parents you have, you think you could get away with being a bad student and beating up and fighting?
No.
What would have stopped you? And some parent would have handled you differently. The buck stops at home.
Yeah, not only my parents, the village.
Yes.
The village.
Yes.
They would have dealt with me. And let me give you this next example for school, right?
Yes.
Primary school, you know, one teacher teaches all the subjects.
Right.
And when you go to each standard and you go up, they know who's the troublemaker. And all they do is put them in the back.
Yes.
And that needs to change.
Yes. All right.
And the last thing before I leave, and when a child enters secondary school, you must have some form of psychiatric evaluation, be it every 6 months.
Yeah.
You must have somebody coming in every week, talking to the students and observing the students' pattern, and you will know who is trouble. Because let me tell you something, what plays the biggest factor is the environment where you grow up.
Yeah.
And one example before I leave. You see, in Westmoreland, children will behave different because the environment different compared to a trouble area. Because in a trouble area, they see more stuff that is going on that is not right for a child to consume at that young age. All right, look on listening, guys.
Yeah. Right.
Good afternoon, caller.
Hey, I go there to my brothers.
Good afternoon.
No, a parent is the first teacher. So
Yes.
the first institute of learning
Yes.
from a parent. And a teacher become a parent because that teacher has to see what that them training them for, as you say, for 8 hours or whatever. So then become a parent. What they need to do is to get the parent and teachers in a one meeting.
Right.
Because they all doing the same job.
Yes.
And then come to a conclusion. No, I believe that they could form a council, like with police, social workers, religious people, and have a council, have a meeting between all of them, so that they be working on the student and child. If a child going wrong, we have a council with police, social worker, wherever, you understand? So they could put them there and counsel them and wherever.
Yeah.
You understand? So I believe the government should make sure that all parents and all teachers come to that meeting.
Right.
In the school now, to form that council. So my friend, you all have a good day.
Thank you.
And
That's actually PTA should function in theory.
That is, you see, it have a lot of breakdown in the system, and and I'm glad I listened to the minister when he hinted to educational reform.
Yes.
And I really do hope, because I know he and I would have spoken a lot about some of these issues in the school system and some of the issues with the education system in the past. And if that in any way is transferred to the government in office, because it's unfortunate, the feeling side, they had some of that information and they never took advantage of it.
Yeah.
So if he transferred a percentage of that, we could see some reform and some changes in the way things are done in schools and the way education is dispensed.
Caller, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Good program. Good program. Granny enjoyed the program. But the thing is this, no village cannot find itself a village raised children. Not enough now. That was my days.
Yes.
Now, if you go to tell the neighbor what the child do in your place, they want to beat you. My child is a good child. You cannot take those, you cannot do that now at evening. You go to talk to the child. That child ready to hit you or disrespect you. I see that.
Wow.
So no village cannot raise a child now.
Wow.
Now, a principal or a teacher is in serious trouble with parents.
Yes.
No, parenting have a lot to do with, and I always say so, sometimes good parenting could bring out bad children. But now, you know that your child, before your child go to school, you see Graceful was a Mount Hope, the principal at Mount Hope Junior said, Graceful, that was a good principal. That was a good principal. Now, if you could remember, when Graceful scolded children, he did not beat them. He scolded them, they had kidnapped him. You all remember that?
No, you didn't know. Tell us.
Yes, my daughter was going to that school, and Graceful was a man and making joke. Graceful will do parenting. And when he scolded the children, no time after they kidnapped the man, and the man, I don't know how God got him out.
Yes.
To the Puna Hindu school, they asked to come to see a child teach another child lunch. The principal called the child and talked to the child, didn't whip the child. Now, if you go into school your child, talk to your child, and you talk to your child soft and rough, that is not to school him. So if you're a teacher or a principal, you have to be a teacher or a principal or a parent. You talk very serious. Do not do that again. Next time, you will get the whip or the belting or what it is. They bust the man head in school.
Wow.
So tell me what teachers or principals could do to these kind of parents and these type of children. I mean, I don't think it out what they can do. So the parents have a lot to do more. The parents have a lot to do more. It wasn't easy for me as a single parent with two girl children. It wasn't easy because those things, my little one didn't want to eat problems. Okay? But let me tell you something. From the time you see problems going to take place, put shame aside and get to the police station. Get to the sergeant. Let the sergeant talk to them. I took the sergeant ruler and I gave my girl child. I cried going to the station because I never go in them kind of place. A decent woman. And I took the ruler and gave she too in the station. Yeah?
Yes.
So parents have to do something serious.
Yes.
Don't laugh. Don't laugh and smile. I have no problem right now. My two children doing 2 work. They're working very hard.
Yes.
They sleep 4 hours. They sleep 4 hours to make their children something better. Well, thank you. I enjoy the program.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Granny says she take matters into her own hands. 2 hot ones, 2 quick ones. In the station. She wasn't leaving it up to anybody, even though she was in the station. She saw herself as responsible.
That was in Granny age. That was in the 60s.
Well, yeah, but now we look at the plate of somebody else. We want Mr. Matterson to do it.
No, you are trying authority and all that kind of thing. You do that in a station, you're going down.
So we coming to the end of the program today, and we wish everybody to have a safe and enjoyable weekend. We'll be back out with Monday, and we'll see what the match report says.
Yes.
And we'll be dealing with some matters. So thanks for those who called, and thank you to the Honorable Minister for taking the time. And good evening to Ms. Jolene John, Honorable Minister, who has come in for high commendation in her approach to resolving issues and dealing with problems. Seems to be remaining accessible, which is a quality most politicians lose after elections. Do have a good afternoon. Third Empire, we're out.